Anyone who's a GM running a campaign or module in D&D was at one time a player. And it's really important to remember how it felt those first few times that you played Dungeons and Dragons. You know, whether it was in junior high like I did, or high school or college, or even later in life, you know, you found yourself playing this game where you were assuming the form of this super normal person or, you know, humanoid, and the GM tells the group of players that they're making their way through a labyrinth that hasn't been explored in hundreds of years. You know, and if it was a skilled GM, you could see the, you know, stone walls and smell the acrid dust as you rounded a corner and saw two huge statues flanking a doorway. And the GM asks each player in turn what they're going to do. And then it's your turn. And so you decide, I'm going towards the door. And the GM says, everybody, roll for initiative. And now, however many years later, you're the GM, creating your own world, you know, of mysteries and secrets and adventure. And what you're trying to do with all the encounters and situations that you make is to recreate that feeling you had when you first played D&D with your group of players. Hello again, folks. KR King here, helping you homebrew your own D&D campaign. So as the title of my video suggests, I'm here to talk about the psychology of encounters, specifically how your players react to the encounters that you create, the storylines you develop. And that psychological reaction, you know, that fictional paradox of storytelling where you're emotionally involved in what's happening, even though it's just a game, is almost addictive. And you see this as a player when you run in a world where the GM doesn't achieve that. So I'm going to use the Mad Wizard's Maze encounter that I've been developing over the last few videos to try to talk about some of the techniques you can use to enhance your players' psychological reactions to your encounters, both preceding them, you know, as they're traveling to and fro, and especially as they're involved in the encounter. You know, the idea is to maximize those, but also remember the game mechanics, a sense of fairness, and a verisimilitude in terms of the situations and how the NPCs, you know, react to the player's actions. Then at the end, I'm going to ask for you, the viewer's help, in coming up with some of the particulars of Zanizyre, the Mad Wizard's Maze. So when the story of Zanizyre, the Mad Wizard comes up in the context of a longer campaign, you can let it hang out there and not say much about it. Give them a little information, but let them investigate. Let them make that decision. You don't want to make it super obvious that, hey, this is the next thing we're going to do. It's funner if the players instigate this investigation, instigate their involvement in this scenario on their own. Because a big part of the fun of a sandbox campaign is the players thinking they can go anywhere they want, they can choose what they do. The GM is not railroading them into encounters or scenarios or storylines. So have someone mention that some local fishermen have disappeared near Zanizyre's rock, and then shut up. Don't push it. Let the players investigate. Again, you just sprinkle this in with other information or news of the day. Let them investigate. Now, again, it might be common knowledge that there's this place, this gnome that disappeared. The authorities may have put this island off limits. There are fishermen kind of going there because there's, you know, fertile fishing ground or whatever. But again, if they don't express any interest, you can just leave it alone. Because you can always scale things later. If the players go up in level, you can make this encounter a little tougher. So the players decide there's something's up at Zanizyre's rock and they want to get there. Now, it is an island quite a ways away from shore, so they're going to have to get a boat. But if you set this up as a forbidden or dangerous place to go, this could be difficult. On the other hand, money talks. And if the players want to invest the gold in it and to hire a ship, they can find someone. Now, that someone might be a shady operator, a sort of pirate type figure. That can be interesting too. The other element is you can have, since it's a fantasy campaign, a very localized weather system or storm system in which it's only at a certain time of year, a phase of the moon, that the boats can get close enough to anchor and put a small craft on a tiny sliver of shore on Zanizyre's island. They know there's some fishermen that know about this. They're willing to take them for a fee, but this puts a time limit on how long they can explore the island. Now, the voyage to the island, here's where you can start this psychological, anticipation and dread as the fog closes in around them. Is it more than just feeling clammy? Is there a sense of dread or lethargy that comes over? Do the sailors on the ship feel this as well? The place is notorious for being haunted. Do they hear strange sounds out in the mist, just out of sight? Having mysterious noises, having weird atmospheric effects, it lends that sense of horror, dread. This place is haunted. Strange things are going to happen, and it gives them a sense that we're entering almost another dimension. So when they get to Zanizyre's island, the players would have done enough research, most likely, to know that it's set on these cliffs, that they're either going to have to climb the cliffs once they get on this narrow sliver of beach, or they're going to have to use some kind of spells to levitate or fly up there. So again, if there's only a certain time period that the seas are calm enough for them to land, the ship's only going to wait for so long. Is it a day? Is it 2 days? And of course, this means how many short rests, how many long rests do the players get to replenish, hit points and spells. So, how much magic is available in your world? Could the players buy enough fly scrolls or, levitate scrolls or something like that to move the entire group? So in my world of Melinor's Frontier campaign, magic isn't scarce, but it's not plentiful. They could probably get some levitate, maybe a levitate scroll or two, and use that, levitate someone up, and while you're levitating, you can climb very easily. They could then send some ropes down, and other players could climb manually. I'm looking at this as a 100-foot cliff in terms of the turns. I think it's 20 feet a turn for the levitate. Then once you're climbing by the rope, it's double the movement, so it's like going 200 feet. You're going to have to make some skill checks and whatnot. There's a chance that you could fall. So you have this fog, this mist of whispers that I talked about in an earlier episode. The lost souls of those who were killed in Zanizyre's maze, who now haunt this mist. The thing is, those first few players that go up, whether that's a levitate with ropes to go up there, they're going to enter this mist. And they're going to have to make some saves versus being frightened, some wisdom saves, or be frightened by these whispers and, want to come back down. Again, let me down, let me down. If you do lower them, they're going to realize, they've been frightened. They have to save, after a few number of turns. The thing about it is, even when all the players have made their saves, the whispers may give them information about the maze or about what's coming ahead, because these souls don't want to be haunting this place. They want to be free from this. And there may be something in the maze, something the players can do to free those who are trapped here. All right, so when the players have successfully climbed up this 100-foot cliff and they find themselves on the patio surrounding Zanizyre's house, what do they find there? What happens? How are you going to build a psychological reaction here? What I'm thinking is total stillness. Not silence, because down below, out of sight, 100 feet down through the mist, they can hear the crashing of the waves. But here itself, there's nothing. And of course, you as the GM, you just say, what do you do? And they have to investigate. They have to start looking around. And this builds this sense of excitement. Now, I'm going to have the house is going to have one entryway. I'm going to have this sealed. I'm going to have an arcane lock of some kind, probably a high DC, protecting Zanizyre's stuff. Because he wants, and his constructs that are still there, they want anyone who visits to go through the maze, to earn their entrance into the house. So I'll have an arcane lock there. I'm also going to have a guardian construct, and I'm thinking of basing this basically on a stone golem stats, which is going to be tough. That's a CR 10. I'm thinking this for the party that I'm running, 5th or 6th level. That's going to be very tough for them to defeat, but it never leaves the house. Once the players leave, if they retreat outside the house, the guardian shuts the door again. If they used a knock, it will go away. Maybe they would have dispelled this, highly unlikely. So in the previous video, I also talked about having a ghost, Zanizyre's last retainer. I thought about him haunting the patio area around Zanizyre's house. When the players see the ghost, what is their reaction, right? If he just comes up and goes, ooh, and starts screaming at them, they're going to have typical player reactions. Well, what if they see this ghostly figure looking through this ghostly portrait album of some kind? They're going to say, what is this? What's going on here? And they're going to be much more likely to try to entreaty with this creature. Now, he still might get up and scare them or haunt them because that's part of his purpose. But again, they're going to have a sense that something else is up here. Even if they attack him, let's just say, he'll just go, maybe he does a little damage. Maybe he zooms off to the, astral plane or something and says, you're all going to die or something. Or maybe that he gives them information because he wants Zanizyre to be free of this curse and he wants to be free. So they're going to go up the steps up to the roof and they meet the butler construct. This is what greets visitors to Zanizyre's house. He also gets them into the maze. I'm thinking he's going to be very polite, but with a little sinister. I'm thinking of the old caretaker. If you've ever seen The Shining, the caretaker that greets Jack Nicholson. He has a British accent and he's very polite and whatnot. This is the way, and they say he welcomes all visitors. The master always loves visitors. The master can't wait to see you. There could be a guest book there that they can sign. The players look at this. No one's been here in like 50 years. It's very old. But again, this construct was created to greet people and to get them into the maze. It's continuing to do its function, just as the guardian construct as well. It's there to make sure no one gets into the house. Now, this is tricky. I have this teleport circle on the roof that sends the players into this center room in the maze, and they got to find their way out. How does the butler, does he have to wait until all the members of the party are on the circle? Because some people might refuse to get on the circle, right? Even though he's saying this is the way to see the master. Does he, when one person goes on, does he just send them, thereby forcing the others to, either split up the party and abandon someone or get on? And also, do you have a save? Can you resist the teleport? Because the thing about this is, if you teleport people with no save into a prison maze, where it's clear that they're going to have to fight their way out and they're deep underground or who knows where, they might get a little pissed. Again, in my day, when we made dungeons, when we had teleport, squares or rooms, we just did them. And even today, if you look at the current Curse of Strahd, in Strahd's tomb, there are teleport squares. There's no saves that I can see. So, you can decide to do. That's up to you. The thing is, the psychological reaction of realizing we are trapped in this maze, who knows how deep underground, with a limited number of spells. We don't know if we're going to be able to take a rest. And we only have so much time because the ship is going to go away. This, desperation. What has the GM put us into? Is this the time we finally all die? This kind of thing. And this is exciting. You always want to have this sense that things could be out of hand this time. Now, there's a very important point here. What if the players say, we're not getting on that circle? We are not going there. We can't get through the lock. What if they just turn around and go home? They say, this is too deadly for us. I don't want to be teleported. I can see what's happening here. Okay. You can let them go home. Maybe they want to get more spells. Maybe they want to get a dispel magic. You can also have other NPCs that hear about this. The players went on this ship. What's this going on? They pay the same fee and they go themselves, and maybe they discover something. Maybe they disappear. Maybe they change things. The players realize, when you ignore something, the knowledge of it spreads through the world. So you're always thinking, too, about the story behind the maze, behind Zanizyre's corruption by this artifact and how this was all created, by the fact that these constructs are still here trying to honor Zanizyre's command. He is the master. And work this in when you're creating the various encounters that the players meet within the maze itself. Another element of this is what happened to Zanizyre, right? Did he just die and the constructs are just here? They're repairing themselves and the artifact gives them this energy that they can basically run forever, and they just keep the maze going thinking, when the master comes back, not knowing he'll never come back. Did he go insane and throw himself off the cliff? Did the artifact take control of him and it's holding him somewhere within the maze or some pocket dimension that can only be accessed if you get through the maze into Zanizyre's study where there's another portal? So all of this leads up. You've got some clues here to create these psychological reactions. They're in a haunted place, the mist, these strange constructs which are clearly following their master's instructions. Especially the butler refers to the master. He says that the master wants to see them. He's always excited to have visitors. You just get in the maze. They go into the maze. They realize, what the hell is this? As they start to travel, they can see that this is a maze. And then Zanizyre's personality comes through, right? He was known for his sense of humor, for his jokes and whatnot. And this makes the verisimilitude of a maze with traps and puzzles. it makes sense that Zanizyre would do this, because this is something that he lived for, and he's been corrupted by this artifact who said these, sentient, carbon-based creatures that you're always hanging out with instead of clockworks, they're not worthy of you. Could they pass these, puzzles and traps that you and your genius could conceive? And there you have it. So on our map, I had 17 dead ends. And what I'm thinking in terms of the time frame that the players are going to be under, with 2 days, they're going to have one long rest, and then they're going to have, obviously, 2 short rests each day. So you think about that in terms of the number of encounters they can have. They don't have to be all 17 encounters. They can be clockwork creatures of different kinds. They can be traps. Again, the ingenuity of Zanizyre and his sense of humor. And they can be, informational, whether it's artworks, whether it's tomes or, books or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, the viewer, to come up with some ideas, some traps, some interesting clockwork ideas, whatever, that I want to incorporate when I build the maze. I'm going to, fix those into the storyline that I'm developing about Zanizyre, but I always love to get ideas from outside. I've done this before. It's always interesting to me. But in the meantime, if you like my channel, please subscribe. Leave some comments, even if you don't want to give me any contributions. I'd love to hear what you think, what you want to see in the future. But most importantly, keep playing D&D, my friends, and tell somebody else about it.